Well, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving for those in the United States. And if you're anywhere else, welcome. It's Friday, which means it's time for the Israel Report. Uh, I am joined, of course, by Elon. How are you doing?
I'm okay, thank you, Jay. Yes, I'm
I
all
believe I should
right
say
over here.
Shabbat Shalom, right?
Yes, it's already Shabbat now. Yes, Shabbat Shalom.
Of
Um,
course, I have Jacob here as well. Jacob, how are you doing?
Shabbat shalom לכולם. אני מאוד שמח להיות איתכם. I'm very happy to be with you all this Shabbat.
Excellent.
yeah.
All right, Elon, take it away. What's going on in Israel this week?
On the whole, actually, I was quite surprised. It's fairly quiet. There's not too many scandals. Well, the first thing that I came across was this that the Gaza stabilization force. You may remember part of this ceasefire and the ongoing agreement, the process towards some kind of more stable situation. One of the things is that they're this idea that they're going to put a international stabilization force into Gaza. Now, one of the problems they're having is that not too many nations are willing to risk their soldiers there because, of course, you're just a target for pot shots by Palestinian terrorists. And this may well prove a stumbling block for the progress of the agreement because while the sane nations don't want to put their soldiers in there, there are people like Turkey and Qatar that would love to get involved in there and have volunteered their services. But of course, there's no way we would want someone in the Israelis. Israel would want anybody in Qatar that supports the Muslim Brotherhood, of course, and Turkey and Qatar are both Hamas sponsors as well. So this could prove a problem if they can't get a viable international stabilization force together that would be agreeable to all parties. So that's one thing that's popped up in the news. Another thing is that that's been noted here. There's the Israeli government is being pressured to push forward with this agreement to rebuild Gaza. One of the things that what they want to happen is that Gaza is rebuilt. But under the agreement, it's not supposed to happen until Hamas has been completely disarmed and neutralized. But the violations of the agreement by Hamas are being overlooked, and the pressure is there. Sorry, do you want to say something, Yakov?
They are being
Yes.
overlooked.
Yeah. I mean, of course, so it's like there's a bit of a double standard operating here because, of course, if Israel did something and broke the agreement unilaterally, they'd be held to pay. But the Hamas have been getting away with literally with murder here, and they're still violating their side of the agreement. There's still one hostage left, or dead hostage
Yes.
left to be returned. So, but efforts to start the rebuilding parts of Gaza have already begun to some extent. Apparently, heavy equipment's being moved into the area, construction equipment. There seems to be a bit of a division in the cabinet here because Bibi is clarifying, he's saying that reconstruction will only happen after Hamas has been demilitarized. So there's some kind of it indicates a bit of a division there somewhere in the cabinet, I think. But there's something else going on. There was some puzzling going on over how come Hamas agreed to release the hostages in the first place because this commentator or this analyst is saying, well, why would they do that when these hostages were basically their last bit of collateral? And it is believed now by this analyst that actually that there's a secret clause in the agreement between that's only between Hamas and the US, and this clause, though Hamas does have to give up some of its leverage under, they may well be included in uh, the security setup after as part after the rebuilding and everything is done. So they get to retain their small arms and they won't be expelled from the Gaza Strip. I hope this is not true, but it looks a bit suspicious that they were ready to give up their collateral, to give up the hostages, and that's a bit disturbing if there is some kind of secret clause in there, because well, it wouldn't be good. Let's put it that way. Just leaving Hamas in place is just a recipe for the future collapse of the agreement and the whole situation turning rapidly into the same mess that we just kind of fixed only a few months ago. Another thing that's come up this week is, of course, you remember that on October the 7th, 2023, there were a number of severe failures by military, air force, and the response to the breach in the border fence and the invasion, that it was obviously a failure of military intelligence, a failure to read the situation properly, and to the fact that the military intelligence did not see the build-up for what it was, and the
Correct.
response was so behind that, of course, an inquiry has to come, and so the first steps have been taken to holding the top brass accountable for what went wrong on October the 7th, because there have been a few interim inquiries, but they've not been deemed satisfactory. So the real thing, a more thoroughgoing inquiry has now begun. The first steps have now begun. So we'll see what comes out of
Yes.
that. I'm sure there'll be some heads rolling somewhere. So that was another big story. Another thing that came up this week was that the Iranian regime has found ways to get, what's the word, to repair the military capabilities of the Houthis and to upgrade some of their equipment and their offensive potential. They're smuggling arms into, rather than firing missiles at people now, they're smuggling arms into Yemen via several back doors in order to enable the Houthis to become an even greater nuisance than they already are. There's another thing that came up which I thought was very interesting, and this was an analysis of the by an Israeli. I think he was in Israel Hayom. This might have been, no, it was Israel National News. I think this, and it was an analysis of what's happening in the Ukraine-Russia war, and how this compares with the situation in northern Cyprus, where
Yes.
there's President Trump is trying to get some kind of agreement in uh, to cease the war in the Ukraine and to try and get each side to make some concessions, and he's making promises to Ukraine. But this guy is saying that really the this agreement in the over the Ukraine that the President Trump is trying to put forth, it says it would apparently this ceasefire framework between the Russia and Ukraine is presented as Europe restoring peace and sovereignty according to the terms of the draft agreement. It would freeze Russian gains, cap Kiev's forces, and bar the Ukraine from entering into NATO. This deal is being pitched as providing stability enforced by the threat of cutting Ukraine's aid. But he's saying that this actually is this agreement will not be worth the paper it is printed on. He says that in 1994 that Ukraine surrendered the world's third largest nuclear arsenal under the Budapest Memorandum, and that deal offered no binding guarantees, only assurances that borders would be respected and UN actions sought if attacked. But all of these assurances vanished when they were most needed. And the guarantors of the agreement never intended really to enforce it with any kind of hard power. So he's saying that really this is exactly what's going to happen to this agreement will do for it'll be the same kind of thing with Zelensky. What's being promised to Zelensky now is just the same kind of thing. It will not provide any real protection or enforcement if it's put to the test. And because, I mean, Ukraine and Russia, they're quite far away in a sense from Europe. But you've got Cyprus, which is an EU member state, and where actually there was a legal obligation to respond when Turkey invaded Cyprus, but nothing has ever happened because it's been pragmatic for people to ignore Turkey's violations. So, in other words, well, he's applying this situation now to Israel's situation. That paper agreements on paper are no substitute for independence and capability to defend oneself in the case of if the agreement is violated and agreements are violated. So this is quite interesting that Israel's watching these things, he says, with great interest because we don't expect that any kind of agreement that is made, even the one that's being made now, the Abraham Accords, all this kind of stuff, and all this thing over Gaza, that guarantees will be honoured. And we should look to this with great suspicion and make sure that we're, I think it was at Churchill that once said, if you want to have George or, no, if you want to have peace, you must prepare for war. In other words,
Yes.
Agreements only well, they may not be honored. You cannot trust them. You can only trust in capability and your own capability, where you can't be let down. So I thought that was a very interesting analysis. A few more small things, really. One, we had. For anyone who's not ever been out here, when the winter rains arrive, it can be quite spectacular. On Monday on the weather forecast, it said there'll be a shower in the morning, and indeed early in the morning a shower did arrive. But if in the UK a shower is like it's 15 half minutes, half an hour, some light rain. Well, over here it says a shower. I mean, it was like the heavens opened, tremendous lightning storm, and there've been floods all over the country. Cars getting washed into wadis and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it was a mammoth storm. It was like an artillery bombardment. It sounded like it was so close overhead, and it went on for quite a long time. We stood and watched it on our balcony, and it was, you know, if that's a shower, then what does an actual downpour look like? Astonishing. The streets are awash very quickly. I mean, they always have to pump the drains out here before the winter season arrives. Not like Birmingham in the UK, they pump them out because we know what will happen. Um, you get a huge amount of rain in a very short space of time, and it caused quite a lot of problems. A lot of rescues had to be done. in various places, even quite close to here. Cars getting washed into drainage channels and things like that. So yes, that was the little shower that we had on Monday. One more thing. Oh yes, sorry, I've just seen it at the bottom. In Judea and Samaria, because of the situation in the past, the civilian population that are there, the Jewish population, it actually because of the status of those areas, the actual law that's applied there, that operates there, is actually military law and not regular Israeli civilian law because of the jurisdiction issues that have been in the past. This was this decision that was taken 70 odd years ago. But this situation meant that you couldn't easily buy property over there if you're Jewish. And there are all kinds of gymnastics, legal gymnastics hoops you had to jump through to be able to buy an apartment or something, or build out there. But now that is the steps are being taken now to remove that law, which was actually from the Jordanian era.
Yes.
And Jews actually under that law had been banned from buying land in Judea and Samaria. So that's now being cleared away. So even though sovereignty has not been declared over those areas, this is a step towards it and in preparation for it. So that was an interesting little thing that I just found about a couple of hours ago. It was one of the latest things on the news. So that's it for this week on the Israel Report, I think. I'm sure we'll have some more events for next week because not a week goes by here without something happening.
Thank you so much, Elon, for the
All right.
update, and we'll see you
Yeah.
next week. God bless.
Yeah. Yes. God bless to everybody and see you all next week.